You're listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.
Hi, it's Louisa Tanner Munson, and this is part 11 of the Uranus series, where I've looked at the influences of Uranus going through the different houses of the birth charts. Now we're in the 11th house, and this is one of the houses that I think Uranus has a real understanding of. The 11th house is like higher creativity. It's the opposite of the 5th house. The 5th house is the creativity that we give birth to, the creativity that comes from our loins. It's what we're doing. It's our sexual energy, our procreative energy, our talents that express themselves. But the 11th house is the public version of that, in my mind. It shows the collaborative version of our creativity. So if you imagine the 5th house expression might be you're an artist. The 11th house expression might be you're an artist that creates art for your audience deliberately and you participate in it. You could be an environmental artistic performer. That's the difference between 5th and 11th. So the 11th house is a house to do with organisations, collaborations, the energies of working and creating with other entities. So they often show up as charities and government departments, any kind of organisation that you might need to liaise with from time to time. The 11th house also represents social networks. I think the 11th house also represents the internet, which is the web connecting everyone all together. You know, the web of the hive mind, which is what is becoming of all this information that's so freely and beautifully shared around the world. The 11th house is about support and collaboration. It's fabulous. I also think of the 11th house as being that place to do with the law of attraction. So it's like inspiration and intention plus asking for cooperation from the universe, which again is another outside authority that we might want to collaborate with. Like the power of keeping your secrets to yourself and your desires to yourself and just like focusing on what you're doing. You don't really get any extra help. But when you write down your goals and read them out as if you're witnessed by life, and life starts working with you. I guess that's my interpretation of the law of attraction, where you're wanting to work with the energies of the world. Now, this might sound a bit esoteric, and forgive me if it's not your bag. But really, the 11th house is about collaboration. And flat hierarchies. Traditionally, on a zodiac basis, the 11th house is associated with the sign of Aquarius, and Aquarians tend to be very equanimous. They're about equanimity and independence, freedom of thought. They want freedom for people. They don't really like airs and graces. They like everything to be quite flat in the hierarchy. They like people to be able to express themselves freely, but not assume that one person's lot is better than another's. They're good guys. They're very charitable, humanitarian, philanthropic, and Uranus is also the ruler of Aquarius. So Uranus in the 11th house, which is the sign of Aquarius traditionally, Uranus in the 11th house have a synergy. They understand each other. It's perfect. So if you have a Uranus in the 11th house in your birth chart, you are probably quite spontaneous, probably quite freedom-loving, naturally able to work with organisations and collaborate. You're a natural collaborator. You probably have very big social networks, a very big social capital, I would imagine, through your networks. You know, you might not have tons of money, but it doesn't matter because you've got social capital. You have got enough social points in the world that life is just rewarding you. It's like whatever you're interested in, you're happy and able to be vulnerable enough and trust in life enough to allow collaborative components to come into place and make things work for you. Also, you're more likely to work for an NGO or a charity. You're more likely to work for some kind of social cause and put your mind and your independence and your freedom towards some kind of ideal. It's a very idealistic place. And having Uranus, which is very much about independence, in a place of ideals, shows that you're somebody that doesn't like to be tied down too much, but you're very happy working with other people to find... You're community-based people, you're communards, independent and community-led, which seems to sound like it's not a match, but you're the kinds of people that might want to settle in a community based on shared ideals and shared values. Does that make sense? Kind of hoping so. So I think Uranus in the 11th house is very useful if one of your goals in life is to create change in the world and be inventive, or find inventions that are going to help the world, find inventions that are going to take away the gaps between how people live. So I imagine a lot of these socially beneficial enterprises and inventions are part of the Uranus in the 11th house mindset. You know, these bright young things that are creating solutions to help with big problems that cause social inequality in the world. That's a natural 11th house Uranus kind of activity to get involved in. I mean, Uranus is about technology as well. It's about the airwaves. It's about unseen advances. It's about modernity. It's about energy systems. So imagine if you've got 11th house, a collaborative Uranian mind, and you want there to be a flat and healthy ecosystem where humans live great in collaboration and in compassion with nature and its surroundings. You might want to be thinking about how we reuse, recycle, repurpose. You might want to think about how we can live in accordance to nature's rules while still having all the kind of futuristic resources that could be useful. You're more likely to come up with ideas and solutions or be involved in solutions that help the world, but that involve technology. So, like some people who might be saving the world in some respects might be doing it from a very sort of transitional perspective. I don't know if you're aware of the transition movement, but transition, people talk about peak oil and what will happen should peak oil, like the last vestiges of oil and petroleum, suddenly disappear, and how the world is going to survive. And a lot of people within that movement are very much humanitarians. I meant like community humanitarians, which might be a new word actually, but they're the communards. They're the people that want the world to be useful. And a lot of them go back to nature and think about, composting everything naturally, using the natural laws. A lot of them do gardening and do some of the more natural ways. A lot of them ride bicycles, as opposed to having cars. And I think that's awesome, the kind of ethics that they have and the ability to lead by example and be that leader that, shows the way and defines the way. With Uranus in the 11th house, though, you've got a different way of delivering the same message. And it might be, you can have your bikes, but let's power them up. Let's find a great way. And electric bikes, electric cars are some of the ways around it. That said, creating these electric bikes or electric cars obviously cause more damage as more resources are found to create and manufacture these new things. But the 11th house Aquarian Uranus energy is about finding ways around that. So a bit like the 3D printers that are available now and the open source technology. Now, open source is a real 11th house Uranus kind of energy. It's about using technology to keep people free and to make things work. 3D technology, if that can be used with reusable materials, then you're laughing. And they're the kind of things that the 11th house Uranus people are most likely to find solutions for. So, create new technological, modern solutions that don't take us out of balance with nature. So how to compost, but compost twice as fast or 10 times as fast or 20 times as fast, whilst using a new type of bacteria or a new type of fungi or whatever. But they are the inventors and creators that are creating a more equal world and collaborating with other people to get it done. This is an amazing position for Uranus to be in. And of course, you don't have to do it in an environmental way. You can do it in so many different ways. So, they will also be the programmers who are creating new resources. They might be the people coming up with cryptocurrency or working on cryptocurrency. They might be people working in the blockchain, creating new ways for ideas to be shared equally and to challenge, and this is the important thing, I think, to challenge the status quo that creates the gaps between the people. These are the guys designing the solutions for our future. Anyone with an 11th house Uranus energy, you are changing the world for us. And I thank you for that so much. Don't ever lose sight of that, because a lot of the 11th house Uranus people are quite happy to live with fewer resources themselves. They're not really so worried about it. But, I urge you to make life work for you too. You're very philanthropic, and I think it's amazing. Anyway, I went on a lot there about Uranus in the 11th house, but I really think it's relevant because these kinds of people are shaping the future, and anyone with a strong 11th house or a strong Uranus will have themes of that in their own charts too. Now, if Uranus is going through your 11th house, then this is the time when you are reaching out throughout your social networks, working within governments and organisations and charities and NGOs and blah, 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 to bring about collaboration of your goals. So the 10th house Uranus that you've just been through has helped you change your career, helped you change your public persona, helped you change the way you express yourself. As that moves into your 11th house, this is you gaining traction with your collaborative potential. And if you've already got beautiful networks in place, then you'll fly through it. But this is a collaborative time for you where you'll have surprising new collaborations, surprising new people coming into your life. You'll be attracting more unusual thought leaders into your life. You might be getting into environmental issues or world political issues, because that's all very, very important to you as you enter a more collaborative phase. It also shows crowdfunding. I mean, crowdfunding, let's hear an alleluia for crowdfunding and for people working for people. Patreon, this site that, I'm putting my work on. It's about sharing what I love doing with as many people as possible, because if every one of you just donates a tiny bit, then you're supporting me to support lots more people. And that's the whole idea of crowdfunding, philanthropy, and creating a real sort of equal base that people can start expressing themselves in the way they ought to be. I don't think there's any need for people to live in slavery or poverty. But anyway, that's me just going on a bit. So hopefully, if you've got an 11th house transit of Uranus coming up, your life's going to expand quite exponentially. And I think by the end of it, you might be a bit tired out actually from all the collaborations that you've been through, and through how your life has been enriched by kind of giving back to others. Anyway, that's enough for now. Thank you very much for listening. Give me a shout if you want to discuss any of those themes. I'd love to talk more in depth about those. Anyway, take care.
You've been listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson, and this recording has been made possible by all you lovely supporters at Patreon. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.